Good evening. Today we're talking about why you feel responsible for everyone's emotions and how it starts. If you feel responsible for how everyone else feels, I want to say this clearly. This is not your personality. This is something you were trained into. And many people don't even realize that it's happening because it starts so early. Maybe you were a person who had to help one of your parents, maybe your mother. Maybe she was a person who struggled a lot with depression or with anxiety or needed constant reassurance. And she didn't really have anyone else but you. Maybe it was the two of you in the house together, and you learned to be able to manage her emotions to help her feel better. And that made you feel worthwhile. That made you feel like you were helping your mother, that you were giving her love, you were giving her care that she needed and that she could use. And it came from a compassionate place in your heart. And you didn't feel like it was pressure. You didn't feel like it was something that was difficult. Hey, Rick. Hey, Stacy. You didn't feel like it was anything difficult. You felt like you were doing something good for your mother. And you loved her and you wanted her to be safe and you wanted her to be happy and feel content. And most people don't even realize that it's happening because it starts so early. It becomes something normal. And then this is how it starts ultimately. As a child, you were never supposed to manage adult emotions, right? Adults are supposed to regulate themselves and be there and try to regulate you. However, in this scenario, you were the person who was responsible for trying to get other people to feel like things were okay, that things were going to be better. And it was almost like you were a little adult trying to caregive and make sure that your mother knew that she was loved and that she was cared for so that she could potentially help and keep you safe. And so, but some of you had to, and that has to be extremely difficult to know that you have an adult who should have been the one offering you care, offering you emotional support. But instead, you were almost like the little adult who was giving them the love and the care that they needed. Maybe a parent that was overwhelmed, a parent that was unpredictable, or even a parent who was emotionally unavailable. You learn to read moods very quickly, which probably that comes in handy now, especially with the all different types of people that people run into. You adjusted behavior to keep the peace. You knew that you couldn't do certain things because that would cause mom or dad to be upset or be frustrated with you. And so you became emotionally intelligent, but for survival, not by choice. And so let's talk about the conditioning loop. Um, and here's how the pattern forms. Someone is upset. And when someone is upset, a lot of us don't like to deal with negative, harsh emotions. That can be really difficult to deal with. And so you fix it. And then the tension goes down. Your brain logs, this is how we stay safe. We read emotions, we see how mom's feeling, and then we gauge her temperature, her emotional temperature, by how she feels. Is she happy? Is she sad? Is she mad? Am I walking on eggshells today? Or are we laughing and joking today? Because based on her face right now, I think she seems calm, but that could potentially change at any moment. Imagine yourself in that age, in that era, dealing with that, right? It's a scenario where you're not really sure how to read the emotional temperature in that room. And so now your brain connects. Other people's emotions are now your responsibility. You are the person who is going to keep people calm. You are the person that is going to avoid conflict. You're going to be the person who smooths things over, makes people safe, makes people feel supported, and that is your role. That's what you were supposed to be. You were supposed to be the emotional caregiver. And this is why you feel guilt. A lot of people feel guilt in this role because they feel like they're not doing enough, or they don't understand that they are not ultimately responsible for other people's emotions. but their childhood set the root for that because you were put in that position much too early, much too soon, well before you were likely ready or even understood what you were really doing. You just knew that certain things you could do for mom or dad or whoever made them feel better, even for a moment, right? And so you feel guilt. And I can totally relate with that. I don't know how many of you can relate with that, but you feel guilt when someone else is upset, or you feel guilt for setting boundaries. Because if you're setting boundaries, then you're ultimately telling someone no. You're hurting their feelings. You're not doing what they need you to be doing for them. So essentially, there goes the people pleasing thing too, because ultimately you want to make people happy. You learned that if you could keep people happy, that they would be calm and peaceful, and that everything would be smooth sailing. Guilt for choosing yourself. And I know a lot of us experience that just because we have grown up in situations where we have been the caregiver to an adult. Because your brain is saying, if they're not okay, we're not okay, right? There's something wrong that we're not stepping in. We need to be helping these people. We need to be making sure that they're okay so that we can be okay. Because if you are a person that is an empathetic person or senses like the slightest kind of disconnect between what is going on and what is happening and occurring, it can be extremely difficult to navigate that guilt, navigate that heaviness, and not really know what is actually going on. You want to try to prevent the meltdowns, prevent the hurt, because you don't want anyone to be hurt, right? You want everybody to be happy. You want everybody to be calm. So let's talk about the nervous system piece, because this is also an important piece. This isn't just emotional, it's physical. How many of you have experienced somatic symptoms? Maybe you get chest pain when you get really anxious. Maybe you get digestive issues, when you're going through stuff and you kind of go through that. Maybe you have a scenario where you're not really sure. You get so overwhelmed that your trauma response is one of several: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. My personal one that I have that I deal with a lot is when I get really, really stressed, I start losing things like my keys or my wallet, any number of things, and I can't find them. And it doesn't matter, no matter what I do, I cannot remember what I did with those things. And so I would say that is more of a freeze response. And ultimately it's like your brain is like a computer, and you just get so stressed that you forget everything you know. It's almost like you wipe the computer clean, right? And so you might default to fawn, which you try to appease. You try to, smooth things over. You try to fix things. You try to make things better than how you found them, right? And so your body has learned that peace is where safety's at. If there's no peace, then it's likely that you're not going to find the safety that you're looking for. So let's talk about breaking the pattern. The hardest shift is this: realizing that you are allowed to let people feel their emotions without fixing them. Because ultimately, everyone is responsible for their own emotions. That doesn't mean that you can't come alongside. That doesn't mean that you can't help them out. But it means that you ultimately are not responsible for what someone else is feeling unless you are the direct reason that they are feeling the way that they are. Either you hurt them, you did something terrible to them, or something like that. So let's talk about discomfort is normal, right? People experience discomfort, and that's okay. Not everybody is going to be happy all the time. We can't make everybody happy, right? Boundaries feel wrong at first. It feels like you're violating someone, or it feels like you're taking away their trust, or you're not putting up your end of the bargain, because people are dealing with things that are tough, and no one likes to see anyone else struggle. I understand that. I'm the same way. I get really anxious when people start getting upset. I get really anxious when I feel like I can't fix a problem, or I don't know how to talk a person through it. that can be extremely difficult and extremely sad and heartbreaking to actually see. But that's rewiring. That's not failure, right? And so one thing that I want you to think about and kind of hold on to is the fact you were never meant to carry everyone else's emotional world, right? That's not your responsibility. That's not what you were put on earth for, right? You were not responsible for the world's emotions. Although you would like to help, although you would like to give love and share love and encouragement, that's great. But ultimately, blaming yourself for someone else's emotional state is not fair to you, and it's not fair to them. And ultimately, even though you want to help them with all the peace in the world, that doesn't mean that they are ultimately going to be able to get a hold of their emotions, right? Because they need to be the container for their own emotions. You learned it, right? But here's the good news. You can unlearn it, right? Type me if you felt this and tell me, when did you first notice this pattern? So I hope that this video gave you a little bit of insight and inspiration. And just want to say that I hope that this video gave you a little bit of kind of food for thought and maybe potentially helped you kind of think about looking at trying to get away from entanglement, whether it's still with your family, whether it's with people in general, because that is a gift in some ways, but it can also be a double-edged sword in which you are giving to people constantly and not really looking after your own needs and exhausting yourself and experiencing compassion fatigue and things like that for people that you may not even really know very well, right? So ultimately, there has to be some sort of boundary to be able to protect yourself, or else you're going to be open to the elements, essentially. You're going to be at the whim of others' emotions, other people that you may not know very well, right? And so that's something that could be not only detrimental for you, but it could also be exhausting and tiring and maybe take away from some of the things that you're trying to do yourself. Because you are important, you are worthy, you deserve to have some semblance of peace and not worry about feeling like you have an impact on other people that you're not necessarily close to or that you know very well, right? I mean, yes, we should care about others. Yes, we should look after others. But at the same time, we also have to keep our own peace and our own comfort safe. And a lot of people who have been enmeshed either with parents or with other caregivers has this idea that they are responsible for others' emotions and that only they can help other people. I mean, like I said, it's great to want to help others. It's great to want to have an impact, but ultimately you have to guard against some of that to protect yourself and protect your peace, because there are people that are going to continue taking advantage as long as you continue to offer that up, as long as you continue to give a big piece of yourself. And there are times when you can say, you know what, I really would love to help you, but today I just can't. You know, I've got a lot going on. I will pray for you, or, you know, we can talk another time when I'm not as busy at the moment. I just got a lot going on, and I just don't think that it's the thing that really needs to. It just can't happen today. I'm sorry, right? And I think that ultimately, if you do your best to just offer people kindness and do the best that you can, not all of us can do something, right? Something, even if it's something small. If it's encouraging somebody, offering them a hand, you know, talking to them kindly and nicely. I do believe that what goes around comes around, and I do think that showing compassion is extremely important to others. You know, and I do think that kindness will come back to you. I know that a lot of people feel like sometimes, you know, they say nice guys finish last, but I think that ultimately you have to look at yourself in the mirror and decide, you know, what your mantra is, you know, how you feel about certain things, and make up your mind to be able to decide what is best for you. But I do also think it's nice to be able to offer a helping hand and some love to others, because there's a lot of people struggling lately. And there's a lot of people who are just really sad and kind of don't have anyone in the world. And I just can't imagine, being in that scenario. But ultimately, I think that let your heart be your guide, and definitely look and see, if there's someone that you can help, and it won't cost you, anything but a helping hand and some kindness and some love and some compassion. I mean, I think our world could use a lot more compassion. Um, but yeah, it can be really difficult to feel like you're enmeshed with others, and not really sure how to kind of navigate that and feeling responsible. Um, but if it's the type of thing that you feel like you want to do, then by all means, go ahead, because I think the world can definitely use a kinder place. But ultimately, know that no one is responsible for anyone else's emotions. We are all responsible for our own emotions. And sometimes we need to figure out how we can handle that, whether it's deep breathing, whether it's meditation, whether it's exercise, whether it's eating better, whether it's going for walks. I mean, there are all sorts of strategies that can help us. Maybe even looking into counseling, for, in some area that can potentially help. Therapists and counselors can give you some strategies that can help, to help that person, right? And help yourself too, because if you feel like you're ultimately responsible for everyone else's emotions, that's only going to drag you down deeper and make you feel maybe sad, maybe potentially start causing depression or some other thing that would potentially harm you, and that you would need to seek help for, because you don't know how to manage that, because you've been taught that you are responsible for other people, things that really have nothing to do with you, right? And I think that it's essentially, it's a good trait to want to help others. But ultimately, what do they say when you're on an airplane? Make sure that you put your mask on first before attempting to help someone else, including your children, right? Including elderly, including other people. So ultimately, if you aren't looking out for yourself in some ways, you can't help anyone else, because you are already bogged down by what's going on, right? So, in closing, I want to say thank you for all of you for tuning in. I appreciate it. And I hope that you all have a great rest of your day. Know that I've been going live pretty much every day, for the last week or so, and I will continue to do so. So, again, I hope that you will come back and see me again soon. We do different topics. And also know, if you're looking into what role you might be, we are coming up with something of that very soon. Um, Thank you very much, Thomas. There are actually, probably there will be two roles. One will be a primary role of the family, and one will be a secondary. So stay tuned for that, because that is coming. So if you guys are like, what role am I? I don't even know the role. You should be able to find out very, very soon. And I will definitely keep you guys posted on that. Again, thank you very much. And I appreciate your time today. And I hope that you all have a great rest of your day. And hopefully you'll come back and see me tomorrow. I'm trying to figure out a schedule, so I'll let you know when it happens. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Thank you.